of the population, and also a large section of them live in a what you might call a condition of precariousness, in the sense of unemployment, poverty, working in the informal sector, and not having a sense of security and so forth. So, what kind of what goes on with this population? And one of the things that we had in mind when we applied and got this grant to do this action research was to identify youth in Hyderabad who are, defined as youth who are violent. And one of the proxies for that is, to look for the youth who are in who have rowdy sheets on them, or who are history sheeters on the police record. And there are a large number of such people. There are about 1,800 people on rowdy sheets in Hyderabad, and maybe another 2,000 or more who are under police watch, though not officially on these lists. So we thought, let's work with a cohort of this youth. And when we started looking at what happens with these young people, we realized that there is no real program that the state, the government has, or the police department has, which gives them some kind of a structured way or a way to get out of the situation they find themselves in. Once you're on these lists, then what happens is your life becomes very complicated and fraught, and on an average, it takes something like 10 years to get off this list, which is really the time young people, their futures are determined. So we had the good fortune of getting the support also of the Hyderabad police to some extent, and we worked with a cohort of 40 young men who are on these rowdy sheets, and we worked with them for a period of about a year or so. And the results of our work with them, we were actually quite enthused by it, and think that it has a potential. And the rest of the session would be Deepika and others talking about how we went about doing this work.
This is the basic context, like describing Hyderabad, and our project, we have based it in Old City. That is the south and west zones, which is part of the Old City. That is the police zones I'm talking about. So our story starts with filing an RTI. So Uganda team is actively involved in filing RTIs. So one of the interesting RTIs which they filed was to get the number of rowdy sheeters in the police surveillance system. So as per the data we got, so we have analyzed it in terms of age, as you can see. So if you can see the data, if you can see the graph, you can see that the west zone and the south zone has a higher number of rowdy sheeters, number of people on the rowdy sheets. And if you see the age, less than 26 years of age, that's the highest number. So this gives an account that more and more youth are getting involved in this. I mean, they are listed in these rowdy sheets. And if you look at the data in terms of the demographics, if you see the Hyderabad demographics, 64% of them are Hindus and 30% of Muslims and 6% are others. Whereas if you see the percentage of rowdy sheeters, it's literally the opposite. It's like 40% are Hindus, whereas 60% are Muslims. So as you have seen, and as Shashi was also talking about, so more and more youth are getting involved. So when we analyzed, we got that there are like more than 50% of them are in youth. Youth we are considering as between 18 to 30 years, and most of them are school dropouts, and they're explaining that there is a system of opening a sheet, but how the sheet closes is something still to be established. And what we have seen throughout the project, like why these people, why these young men get involved in certain crimes and certain offenses, is one is the peer pressure, second is the negative emotional states of their personal things, and third is the interpersonal conflicts. So once they get into these sheets, what are the negative consequences? What are the various consequences they have to face? Is like it's very difficult for them to get jobs, to pursue their education, and their, of course, their status in society and the marriage prospects of of course, themselves and their family members. So this pushes them towards more and more repeated offenses as they go to jails, they get in contact with other senior criminals. So there is whole big cycle of offense being created for them. So this led us to one interesting, we had to go deep and think of like, why is this happening? Like, why do a section of young people, respond in a way that makes them vulnerable to being criminalized? And second thing is, can increased self-awareness and the participation can lead to their better, facilitate their better social recovery. So in search of this answer, so we came across an interesting study that is called the Thinking Fast and Slower, some field experiments to reduce crime and dropout in Chicago, which claims that the rate of return to investing in helping youth make better judgments and decisions in high stakes movements seems to be more promising than social policies that try to change youth behavior in more traditional ways, which is the current mechanisms which our police department has also employed. So based on this, we have designed certain inventions. One was very important, and where the core of our project was the cognitive behavioral training sessions, which we named it as Dora Hai. That is, we wanted to raise awareness of these people through media. We designed radio programs, and also we opened our own YouTube channel, and we had episodes on these various things. And third one was the employability training, financial linkages, and legal assistance, which we thought, when we were designing the interventions, we thought would be very important. But during the course of the project, we realized that there was not much demand for this. And the fourth is, of course, the voluntary work, which was a follow-up for our cognitive behavioral training sessions. This is a voluntary work, which I mentioned earlier. The core group were involved in this voluntary programs, and they every Sunday they attended Mr. Akzar Maksusi's Food for Poor program every Sunday near Dabirpura flyover. Underneath the Dabirpura flyover, he has been feeding poor for the last 10 to 15 years. So our core group, they're also involved in that food serving program, and also they try to do some kind of cleaning, some kind of whitewashing the whole area. So these were certain activities which they were involved in.
And during the course of these interactions and everything, one of the very stark things which comes across is this notion of precarious masculinity. There is masculinity in adults, in males, is something which has to be revalidated time and again in social situations. You have to keep proving your manhood over and over again in situations, and it is a continuous thing throughout life. And what happens when your notion of masculinity is under threat, which is a condition which is called precarious masculinity. So there has been research saying that, when people find that their notion of masculinity is under threat, then the responses at that time can become mentally and physically very aggressive, because something which is valuable to you is under threat. So lots of situations where people get in, at least to the extent we could find out from our interactions, was that there are situations of precarious masculinity. And the other thing also, which I think is quite important, is that there is a tendency now to think of masculinity itself as maybe a negative thing. There's that, masculine behavior somewhere is a problematic behavior. But then many of the traits of masculinity are really very, what you might call very laudable traits. They are traits like loyalty, traits like protectiveness, traits like feeling responsibility for some particular thing, which also keep getting reiterated in the stories of people of this particular cohort. So what we have done is that, so we have constructed a framework around this way of looking at masculinity. And what we have done is we have done interviews with maybe a dozen of these young men, and quite detailed interviews. And what we hope to do is from the data, we want to cull out what categories. We are not looking at masculinity really as an ideological construct or something, but from behavioral science, it's like a heuristic. That is, it's a set of automatic response which is very fast. So the heuristics, which are functionalities, really a category of functionality. So the functionality, what kind of trait or what kind of concept of masculinity underpins these traits. So we are trying to tease out these things from the interviews, and that process is going on. And hopefully, it's not a particularly academic or rigorous thing, so I don't think it will stand the scrutiny of any academic paper. But I think hopefully we'll come out with some kind of findings and some kind of practical insights which might help us, because we intend to continue with this thing of continuing this program. It would help us actually maybe design our thing in a much better way. Because apart from this automatic training people to recognize situations, slowing down their thinking, another important part of whatever training we have done is allowing the space for people to be reflective about themselves and their values, their communities, and what roles they are playing in their family and communities. So we hope that insights from this study will also contribute to, an improvement in whatever manual of the CBT that we are preparing.
This was really a very challenging project on its own. Just what we set out to do, what the plan was, all of this was very new, I think, in our country. This kind of approach to dealing with, young men and dealing towards crime and the solution towards recidivism. Though we've had inspiration from the West, I think that thought itself, it took the team working on this project some time to understand and to get there. But along with that, we've had multiple other challenges that we had to deal with. Of course, all of you must have faced many challenges in 2020 due to the pandemic. But there was few challenges we were prepared for. We knew that elections were going to come, and around the elections, it would have been very difficult to do anything. And it was difficult because, one of our big things is everything we were doing had to be done in close partnership with the police department. Whenever a police department is busy and indispensable, our project wouldn't go as smoothly as we wanted it to be. Because even when we were doing the programs, I think when around that time, maybe we didn't need great support, but any other time we needed lots of support from the police department. And during all these crises, of course, police department is the first one that gets really busy. Then we are also expecting challenges with trust building with rowdy sheeters, and why would they accept us? Why would they listen to us? And I think that was true initially in the project when Deepika spoke about the first stage when we were looking at the participants. Some of the challenges also were that we were not able to choose the profile of the participants. But in our second go, we were able to choose our profile. But actually with the excellent team we had who was running the CBT program, some of whom are going to speak later, we were able to overcome this in few sessions. I think we were able to build a lot of trust. Even today, we are in touch. Akram talks to them regularly. And I think that we were able to overcome. Acceptance and participation continue of CBT sessions, I'd say the same. It was a challenge we expected, but I think because we had such an efficient team, we were able to overcome. Dealing with police department and how they look at rowdy sheeters, I think that did become an issue in the beginning, but again, towards the end, I think they were willing to see us experiment. But more than this, actually, the challenges that really, were difficult for us to deal were what Deepika was mentioning earlier, gatekeeping of community leaders. I'm not going to expand on that. The radio programs are not as successful as we, expected. But more than actually, some of those things are on the thing. But what I'd say is last 1 year, we were not able to really do anything much on the project. We were not able to progress the way we imagined, because I think around last year, we had such rhythm and such energy in the project that we were not able to continue. What actually started with anti-CA protests, because again, we finished our whole set of sessions and we wanted to do a big valedictory session and with the police department, with all our participants who've successfully completed, and we wanted to talk about that and we wanted to do a physical session. And at that point, when the CA protests started happening, we thought, once the protests calm down, we'll be able to do it. But as soon as that happened, the pandemic had hit. And after the pandemic hit, we were not able to do much of anything we were originally planning to do. But we are hoping to continue this once the pandemic subsides, because we see that it is a successful program and we see a lot of potential in doing this. So though the project is ending this December, we do want to continue this in this arena. We want to continue doing this soon. Then some of the insights I'll share very quickly are that, the police surveillance mechanism itself is complex. I mean, it has, how do you get into the rowdy sheet, all of that, though there are rules, sometimes you don't follow it. But also how do you get off them and all of that. There are ties between political parties and powerful people. That's is what makes it slightly more complex. We've also found during our project that there is rampant drug abuse among Old City youth, not just our participants, but a lot of other youth who have similar profile as our participants, young men. That also we were not expecting. It's only after we got into the project that we realized. We've also seen that, as sometimes though it was challenging, working with the police department was very important to do a project like this. And we think we saw benefits of it. And, though we expected a challenge, the youth were very open to the methods we were using, and they were willing to try this. I think, again, the credit goes to our team and how successfully they did it. And we believe that, our CBT program was effective more than we had some doubt, but I think we found it to be more effective than that. What we want to do in the future is we want to continue advocating. We want to continue this advocacy with the state that, they should look at these kind of approaches towards recidivism and towards how they're managing their surveillance and all of that, and to have a relook at this. And a few other countries are doing similar stuff. So this may be interesting to look at. So that's something we are going to continue. And we are hoping that once the pandemic subsides, we will try and do some more of these batches. And next time, we've done only one batch. If we did a second batch, we wanted to do a more rigorous study. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that very soon.
Mr. Ambar Kumar Jha has just joined us. He was the DCP, Deputy Commissioner of Police South Zone, when our program was grounded and during the initial months of the program. He's joined us now. He's in Delhi. He's the director of police training establishment of the central government in Delhi now. And Mr. Jha, if you're there, I'd like you to please join the meeting and say a few words about what your own thinking about all of this is.
Good morning, all. Am I audible? Sasigaru, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you, Sasigaru. It was really a pleasant surprise for me when you came to me in 2018, September, I believe, October, and you proposed this idea. It was really a new thing for me because we have never come across any such experience. My almost 8 years of experience, we had tried from our side, from police side, to convince the people to change their course of life. But getting expert support in this one was the first time. And I was apprehensive about the approach and also concerned about the compatibility, how well we will be able to work with each other. But I think Sasigaru and his team, they all took time, spent time not only with me, but with my whole team, to the down level of the constable and the police station head, who has the actual responsibility of running the police administration. So after this conversation at multiple level, understanding each other's concern, because police cannot work with other organization in the way other organization work. Everyone has to abide by the discipline, by the constraint that police has to function with the police. And I commend Sasi Garu that he appreciated this and accepted the limitations and the constraints that police had. And we selected people on the basis of their background and on the basis of criteria that Sasi Garu and his team has provided us. We selected around 95 people. Am I right, Sasi Garu, initially?
Yes, yes, sir.
So the number dwindled one by one, people left us, but I think whatever was left was the it was like metallurgical process. You get lot of ore, but the gold which comes out is very limited, but still it is gold. And you people were able to filter out that gold. 25% success is still a great success from my point of view. Converting 1/3 people into a decent civilian who were able to get themselves out from this the bad persons list. I think it is really commendable in the first attempt. We must look for improving it in future. But what I appreciate even more than that number is the dedication of your team. I was really surprised to see experts coming from Bangalore, coming from Delhi to talk these people and try to convince them, try to encourage them, even people from corporate world. So all these things has definitely helped not only these people, but also the police to have this faith that we can improve the things and there are people to help us. I commend all of you, appreciate and hope that these things should be scaled up and it should be in depth also. It should not be only confined to one geography or one type of people. It must go juvenile delinquency. It must go different kind of, you will see intimate partner violence. A very civilized man working in a very high company, if he's behaving indecently in his home, those kind of things we have to look into all those individual idiosyncrasies and try to formulate strategy on the basis of these small subgroups so that we can have a very stable society where peace and prosperity will definitely have. If the society is stable and if the people are harmonious, then peace and progress, which is the ultimate aim of a democracy, will automatically follow it. Thank you one and all.
Thank you very much, Jasa, for contributing to the discussion. And now, Tej, we go on to the next thing.
Say, apart from Yugantha team, we've had excellent volunteers who've joined in this and without whom this wouldn't have been possible. The team was headed by Dr. Balaji Utla, Dr. Vandana Jha, who's also here, Ravi Kishore, I hope he's joined, and Javed. They volunteered every Sunday. They would come. We had these 14 Sundays. They'd come every Sunday. Sometimes even before us, they'd reach the venue and make sure everything went smoothly. And the amount of experience they've brought, we are really, really grateful that they've taken time out and contributed. I would request these members to give us a little insight of their experience, starting with Dr. Balaji Utla. Please, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Doctor.
Morning, Vandana. Morning, everybody. Thanks, Shashi, and rest of the team for this project. And I must thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to have experimented. And I must compliment Shashi for always getting me into some new trouble or the other. But it has always been a pleasure. I look forward to them because there's always some learning or the other. This was, I'll try to be as brief as possible and try to probably give a little more space for questions and answers. Some of the facilitators, for the first time, they were dealing with apparently criminals or rowdy sheeters or whatever images that we had in our minds. So the anxieties that the team had to be dealt with. So that was one part of it. The other one is to avoid any kind of a halo effect that can come in, because each of these participants' backgrounds were known to us. It's documented. So at least I deliberately tried not to read them, excepting to get a sense of kind of issues that they got into, just to get a sense, but not necessarily as to who was involved in what was the case history. So this was one particular thing was very assiduously I followed for quite some time. I refuse to even listen to any particular thing that some of our volunteers and community coordinators were talking about. The reason being, I didn't want any halo effect to impact our way of engaging with people. Because at the end of the day, as facilitators, we are also human beings. We also are bound to fall for a lot of things that Shashi did talk about, Kahneman's work, if you read, or any of this behavioral economics research that goes around. We are human and we bound to err. And just because we have a lot of experience and gray hair doesn't mean that we are not human beings, that we can't err. So we kept that in mind every time that we looked into it. So the vulnerability of the facilitators as human beings was always kept in front.
Now, the core thing that I want to say is that when we set out to do an initiative of this kind of gravity, I will use that word, because what is at stake is very real and very serious, and it really lives at stake immediately. And so it is important to know what are the principles. So the first thing that convinced me to join this program was the set of people who were going, whose credibility is very well trusted. The second thing is the people who were going to attend, and it was so much needed for them. The third was the principle on which the program was based, which is CBT. So that we know that there are so many psychological principles that one can work on, but they have their different aspects, timeline, etc., etc. This one is what was the need of the hour because of the urgency of the participants. They were already rowdy sheeters. They had spent maybe 10 years of their life in that situation. They were desperate to get out. And while we took this program, there were other factors, the social, economical, police, political, acting on them. So therefore, this program had to do something very powerful, very quickly, and very meaningfully. And I think that is what the team set out to do. So CBT was a principle that we all believed in, and much has been talked about that. Then regarding my experience, the way Dr. Balaji, Shashi, Yugandhar team, everyone designed the program, which I also participated in, brought forth all of us as human beings, so that we also, every exercise that we took to the table, we also, if it was complicated, we also tried it on ourselves, so that we know the vulnerability one feels while participating in that exercise. So that was one part that stayed with me, and there was a lot of learning, and I'm grateful for that process. The second most important thing is, my friends have also touched upon it, that this kind of a target participant, if I may call, why should they trust us? Why should they connect to us? Why should they share their lives with us? We are so different creatures in their eyes. So that connection was very important. So on the small tables that we worked, they were like mini labs, human process labs. In the LSIP model that Dr. Balaji talked about, there was a larger picture, everything was in place, but there was this smaller table work, group work, where you really had to bear your core and your vulnerability. Otherwise, no one would be forthcoming with their vulnerability. And with that connection being formed, there was also, for me, speaking for myself, because this is the first time I worked with people like this, initially I did feel a sense of, among other things, I did feel a sense of fear also, because knowing that they have actually real life committed very grave crimes. So that was a struggle that I went through, and I must share that comes as a part of facilitating this program. And as I dealt with my vulnerabilities, I think somewhere they dealt with theirs, and there was a connection. And thereafter, just saw them as another set of people, just as myself, and it was a beautiful experience.
But I think one key aspect which I experienced personally, the design of the program aside, the concept and all, I have no doubts that there was so much effort and thought which went into it to make it go towards success. But I would just say besides us, the participants also had a lot of stake into it. For us, it was a program which we wanted it to be a success, but the participants, I'm sure, had much more to be taken out of the program. And I would I have seen the trust. Doc Balaji spoke about the trust, respect, or the other facilitators also spoke. I think I have seen a sea change in the amount of trust which the participants had on us in the first week, second week of the program, towards the end of the program. And the video also shows that. I've also heard it just in the smaller groups, we have heard, no, let's not speak anything. We don't know who these people are. It's whatever we speak will be taken against us. So there was a kind of a silent pact amongst the participants initially as to let's not speak whatever is being said. Just hear it out and probably spend the time and we move out to engaging with us, to listening, to appreciating, and I think towards the end also being part of the entire program.
हमारे एक पार्टिसिपेंट है सईदुद्दीन, आप वो आपसे बात करेंगे किस तरीके से दो राहें प्रोग्राम उनको हेल्प किया और वो क्या कैसे इस प्रोग्राम को देखते हैं।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम मोहम्मद सईदुद्दीन है। मैं पूरा प्रोग्राम में अटेंड करा, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। मैं बहुत कुछ सीखा उससे। मुझे बहुत से मालूमात हुए, मुझे अच्छे बुरे चीज़ों के मालूमात हुए। और ये मेरी शीट का जो प्रॉब्लम है सर, एवरीडे हर रोज़ मेरी फ़ोटो लेना, मेरे घर वालों को प्रॉब्लम हो रहा, मेरे सिस्टर है उनके रिश्तों के लिए प्रॉब्लम हो रहा, बहुत सारे परेशानियाँ सर। एक केस है मेरा 6 साल हो गए, केस भी क्लोज हो गया लेकिन शीट अभी तक बंद नहीं हुई। बहुत सारे परेशानियाँ हो रही हैं केस की वजह से, शीट की वजह से। प्लीज रिक्वेस्ट।
ज़्यादा रात में बैठना करना भी छोड़ दिए तकरीबन दोस्तां। अब जो हम लोग भी जिससे टच में वो लोग तकरीबन घर में रह रहे हैं, काम से काम रख रहे हैं। और मेरी जिससे भी बात होती है उन्हें यही बोलते हैं वो प्रोग्राम के जब से बहुत चेंजेस आ गए। और हम लोग सब जितने यहाँ पर है और जो नहीं भी है, जो जिससे हम लोग की बात होती है वो सब शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहते हैं। पूरे जितने भी फैकल्टीज थे जो भी हमको प्रोग्राम में मिले, करम भाई भी हमसे टच में रहते हैं। कुछ भी ऐसा प्रॉब्लम रहा तो हम ना बोलते हैं और गाइड करते हैं करम भाई। और हम लोग जल्द से जल्द बंद हो गया तो अच्छा है। मैं भी बाहर जाना चाह रहा हूँ, ये रॉडीशिप की तरफ से यहाँ पे रुकना पड़ा है। जल्द से जल्द अगर कुछ हो सके तो आप लोग कोशिश करके बंद करा दीजिए रॉडीशिप। थैंक्स।
Navsharan to say a few things. Navsharan is the senior program officer with IDRC, and all of this work would not have been possible without the support of IDRC. And she has been really very gracious and very supporting of us right through the project cycle with all the hitches and the COVIDs and what have you. So Navsharan, if you could say a few words.
Sure. Thanks, Shashi. I may have to close my video because I'm experiencing very poor connectivity today for some reason. But just wanted to say that how delighted I am to be part of this webinar, and on behalf of IDRC, would like to congratulate you, having been part of this journey with Yugantar in supporting young people in this very challenging and yet very innovative project. So it was my pleasure to come and listen to all the people who have been involved in this, including some of our participants in the intervention. And if they're still here, I'd like to, are they still here listening? I can speak in my broken Urdu, Hindi.
Yes.
But you may have to speak in Hindi.
Sorry, Shashi, I can hear you.
You may have to speak in Hindi to them, but they're there. Yeah.
Achha. No, that's why I was thinking that it'll be, I'd like to speak in Hindi और कहना चाहूंगी कि ये पूरी जो हिस्ट्री में एक मोमेंट है यंग लोगों के लिए, ये एक मुश्किल वक्त है। और जिस तरह के चैलेंजेस हमारे नौजवान लोगों के ऊपर पड़े हैं, चाहे वो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का हो, नौकरी ना मिलने का, एक तरह से किसी भी माइनॉरिटी पार्ट होने की वजह से स्टिग्मेटाइजेशन, क्रिमिनलाइजेशन और ये सभी चैलेंजेस बहुत भयानक भी है। और इन सब के चलते हुए जिस तरह की मुश्किलातें यूथ ने अपने ऊपर झेली हैं और झेल रहे हैं, उसको देखते हुए आईडीआरसी में हमने ऐसा सोचा था कि कुछ एक प्रोग्राम कंसीव किया जाए जिसमें ये देखने के लिए कि जो हमारे नौजवान लोग जिस तरह की मुश्किलात से गुजर रहे हैं उसे वो कैसे झेल रहे हैं, उनकी वो किस तरह से उनसे डील कर रहे हैं. It was a small intervention. There are still many questions about scaling and how this can be taken up further. And of course, the youth who were part of this intervention have asked this question very openly in this forum also. What happens to them and can they be taken off those history sheets, which remains a question. And I think Yugantar Project has deeply contributed to the learning experience which we were trying to build through these 4 or 5 projects in South Asia. Will help us in developing further interventions and also an understanding about youth.
We were also fortunate because the police department had shared the case files with us of, I think, nearly 100 people. And then we were able to go through each case file. So we also tried to pick people who only got into rowdy sheet after committing one crime, one case. Also, we were reading the cases and we were trying to look at acts of passion rather than premeditated, acts. And based on that, also we shortlisted some people because we thought CBT would be most effective with a cohort of this sort. So, that way we were fortunate that we had access to see some of that, and from that we picked. But also, I think profile also is the people who chose to stay with us, because there are a lot of people we wanted to work with. And people who were committed to this process, who thought, there'd be value in this and were serious about it, and, they found it interesting, were the people who stayed. So I think that also helped.
And then it was very clear that anything which is transforming takes about a decade and more before it really starts, gaining traction and really becoming mainstream. The good news here is that already the DCP, who I'm told now is in Delhi and looking after training, has sort of said, yes, this needs to be mainstream. So it's gained some level of momentum. Would you see that, that all this reached a little furtherance to be able to meet the original ambition that IDRC set on to do? And what kind of a facilitation is possible that, what was planned and got traction and actually getting closer to being much widely adopted? Do you see this this way?
Can I answer, Shashi?
Please now, Sharon.
Thanks. No, I think it's a good question, and I'd say that the exercise which we began in the 3 regions was actually to do a bit of a mapping of the kind of civic engagement, kind of interventions that were happening. We are still in the process of bringing together all the learnings from some more than 25 projects across 3 regions, and then going for the next level of support to the works that we saw in these projects. I think there's a lot of learning and lot needs to be actually looking at all the three continents, and the synthesis which we have just begun to do as the projects are now closing. Although many of us, and I've been part of all the work that's being done in South Asia, and have had a close link with the projects, and my colleagues in other regions are also doing the same, and we are hoping to have some kind of synthesis of this work, and then decide on the next steps.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for everybody who was part of this project. Thank you, Navsharan, for enabling this from the beginning and being such a great support. Thank you to all our facilitators, all the speakers today, but special thanks to our participants who are here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Team Yogantar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.